Lawmakers wrap up veto session at the State House, but could they return soon?
It is truly becoming ridiculous.
She needs to take a serious look at this.
A new tax package is heading to the governor, but if she vetoes the bill, they could be back for a special session. Will the governor strike it down, or will the tax plan prevail? That's where we start today. You're taking a look inside Kansas politics. Welcome in. I'm Rebecca Chung. The potential for a special session looms, and today we're getting answers from a team of political experts. Joining me today is local and state government professor Bill Fiender and political science professor and author Michael Smith. All right, Bill, Michael, we're starting off with a question on everyone's mind. Will lawmakers have to return to the State House in a couple of weeks? Now, they passed a major tax package before they adjourned, and it's similar to the last bill the governor rejected. It moves the state income tax brackets from 3 to 2, but this time there's less of a cut to the 2 tiers. So the new plan would set a rate of 5.57% and 5.2%. We also spoke with our political analyst Bob Beatty about the plan on the final day of veto session. Here's what he had to say. Bob, let's get your take on this. Will the governor get behind a 2-rate income tax system? It's something she said that it's too expensive in the last plan. What about this plan?
I'd have to say I doubt she will get behind it. You know, she actually said a while back that she wished there was more than 3 rates. So she's definitely been against the flat tax, which is 1 rate, and she's not been happy with 2 rates because that is, of course, closer to a flat tax. She's been vehemently opposed to the flat tax. So I don't see her getting behind a 2-rate plan. She might be willing to if there's some other concessions to what she wants in this tax plan.
Now, the governor's chief of staff saying in part in a statement, Governor Kelly will veto the tax plan agreed to in conference committee report for Senate Bill 37, and she will call the legislature back into legislative session. So if all goes to plan and the governor doesn't change her mind, lawmakers will have to come back for a special session is what it's sounding like. So what's next for lawmakers if they return to the State House? Michael, let's start with you.
Years ago, my friend Burdett Loomis of KU, now the late Burdett Loomis, wrote a book about an earlier session of the Kansas legislature, and one of the things he mentioned was the salami strategy. Imagine that a bill is a log of salami. You try to get it passed, and it doesn't pass, so you slice a little bit off, then you run it back through, slice a little bit more off, and then you just keep doing that until it passes. And that's what it looks like is going on with this tax package. They're trying to identify the precise amount of tax cuts that the governor will accept. And they didn't quite make it within the regular session, so it looks like we're going to special session.
And Bill, what's your take on this special tax session coming?
Well, the salami is getting smaller, I will say that, but not by a lot. It depends on the party. It's a much bigger salami for the Republicans, who have our surplus could go from $3 billion to a little bit under $1 billion, so that's comfortable. But if you look at the Democrats' projections in 5 years, it could wipe out the entire $3 billion surplus. So that is quite a lot of salami to make up. And I don't know, you know, if you would have, remember, the state cannot print money. They have to balance the budget. So when you do that projection, that's really important to make sure you don't eat up all of your savings. And think about this, and the governor's office said as much, you know, there are other programs and items, special education funding, K through 12 funding, her Medicaid expansion. I mean, all these things that aren't wrapped into the budget and this tax cut bill that have not been accounted for. So I think they want a lot more cushion, a little more, I guess less salami in this case, a little more cushion so that they can do some of these things next year or the year after. Remember, she's not running for election anymore. They are. And so this is a push that she's been making all along, and timing of it, if we would have had this vote 6 months ago with rosier projections, but we, you know, a year and a half went by pushing a flat tax. So both sides have a little failing on their parts we've waited so long to this point.
And it should also be added that Kansas legislative sessions are quite short. In Missouri, for example, they're a little bit longer, but they have their veto session in October. And so it doesn't have to be that we have to race through in 4 months, but that's the way it's done in Kansas.
Okay, and let's also talk about cost here, because this could really hit some taxpayers with the special session coming up. Here's what Senate President Ty Masterson had to say about the cost during a press conference just after adjourning, and then he also threw out a pretty high estimate.
Really, she needs to take a serious look at this. Because at this point, if she really does bring us back, you're gonna now spend $84,000 a day bringing the legislature back.
Yeah, how much could something like a special session cost based on what we've seen in the past? And we did have one called for COVID in 2021. So based on that, Michael, let's start with you.
I don't have a dollar amount for you. I will tell you that in terms of the state budget, it's not a lot of money. A lot of times folks will bring up these things like, well, how much are we paying these legislators? They're actually rather underpaid, and a pay increase did go through this time. Staff and things like that. Oftentimes when we invest in better staffing, better office space, and the Capitol was upgraded several years ago, we actually get a better result for the taxpayers. So sometimes trying to do legislation on the cheap actually costs us more in the long run because there's more turnover among legislators, less professional staff, less nonpartisan staff. And so I wouldn't worry so much about these kind of costs, which are a drop in the bucket in the state budget. I would worry more about, do we have the institutional memory to make good legislation? Again, going back to the fact that Kansas legislators aren't paid well and that their sessions are quite short, and they're also understaffed.
All right, Bill, Michael, thank you. A plan to lure the Kansas City Chiefs fizzling out in the final hours of session. But is this the end? Coming up, a look at what's next. We'll be right back. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
Minority entrepreneurs create jobs and contribute to the cultural and social fabric of our society. Join us as we highlight a minority business Wednesday at 6 p.m. on 27 News. Sponsored by FHL Bank Topeka.
Kelly's all new all week. And look who's visiting. Amazing. And Monday, Jeff Daniels from A Man in Full.
Monday at 3 on 27 KSNT. 27 News is working for you with multiple crews covering a deadly tornado and multiple meteorologists tracking the storms.
If you're in Westmoreland, get ready. The storm is heading right into town, so be in your tornado shelter immediately.
27 News. More cameras, more chasers, and more coverage.
A tree branch fell right on their home just as they were exiting. It was a massive response to this tornado.
27 News, working for you.
Hey, baby. Am I just supposed to eat my bagel like you're not gonna go Jessica Jones on Bad Guys?
No, you're supposed to offer me the other half of that bagel. I am your mother. I've done what I can to keep this country safe. And it is my job to keep you safe. This is what I do now. Get down!
Sundays at 11 on 27 KSNT.
Welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. I'm Rebecca Chung. Next up, we're looking at what happened to a plan to lure the Chiefs to Kansas. Now, Bill, Michael, lawmakers were supposed to be using star bonds to make that happen. So this would have set aside enough money to pave the way for a stadium district. Just take a look at these renderings from sports architect David Manica we obtained Tuesday night. Absolutely incredible. Just look at the model there. Okay, well, these were made on behalf of an unnamed developer working to bring the Chiefs across state lines. But a plan failed to make it out of the State House before lawmakers adjourned. So the question now is, will lawmakers take it back up if they return for a special session? Michael.
Well, Rebecca, as you know, I also study Missouri politics, and this vote in Jackson County was absolutely fascinating. It was mainly about the Royals. They want to relocate downtown, tear down some buildings, displace some businesses and some traffic, and tear down Kauffman Stadium. The Chiefs were sort of caught in the middle. If it had been just about the Chiefs, it might well have passed. But taxpayers revolted. The sales tax, as we know in Kansas, is regressive. Kansas is taking it off of groceries. And a lot of the beneficiaries are middle and upper income people, including team owners. And the taxpayers just flat revolted. I don't think that it's done for Missouri. I think the Chiefs have signaled they want to stay at Arrowhead. I know Bill's very knowledgeable about the money being spent on the World Cup. That's going to be held at Arrowhead, which means money's going to pour into Arrowhead for the World Cup anyway. I think that the Chiefs are pretty much off the table. I know Kansas would love to get it.
Well, as you know, I've said this before. Economic development, it's a cumulative thing. It's not a zero-sum game. You invest. You don't know what's coming down the road. One thing leads to another. Well, we've gotten to this point after 20 plus years of a star bond district in Wyandotte County. Now we're at the point of talking about Chiefs and Royals. I mean, this is in a World Cup to boot. So this is amazing. I do like Kansas's approach from what I've seen more than what Jackson County and Kansas City did. They put all the costs of the public dollars on Jackson County residents. Here, the state taxpayers would act as the bank, and they finance the building of the stadium, and then all the users of the stadium, including the players and the entertainment and the shops that would set up around that, the visitors from Nebraska and Iowa, Missouri, would all pay that off over 30 years. Kansas sales tax money would stay in Kansas. No local dollars would necessarily go into it. So it's a good approach, but it's one that has to be take some time to consider. It's a lot of money, and I think the people that are really comfortable talking about it have been privy to these discussions. I'm sure there's a lot of legislators that have not been and are not comfortable. So maybe this special session we'll see more talk about it.
Okay. Well, we're also hearing that Missouri is keeping an eye on these talks as well. So could they try to swoop in and keep the Chiefs on the KC Mo side, Michael?
Absolutely. In fact, and again, almost all the drama has been about the Royals, not the Chiefs. But there was a proposal floated to move the Royals to another county in Missouri, Clay County, and then it just disappeared. Yes, the Royals in particular have been leveraging municipalities against each other. And that may be in part what this is about, is leveraging states, counties, and municipalities to get the best possible deal. And that's also, I think, what ticked off voters. They felt kind of that it was deceptive. And I think, again, it was the Royals' shenanigans, not the Chiefs, that killed that proposed sales tax extension.
Well, I mean, their lease expires 2031, so this would take some time. So they have at least maybe like a decade to, really think about this. However, Bill, what do you think about Missouri trying to keep the Chiefs? Do you think that they would also try to have a counterplan to Kansas's offer if they make one?
Yeah, if you remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the state of Missouri even weighed in with incentives of any sort.
They didn't.
And so that shoe is yet to drop there, and so I think Michael's right. I think we're going to see the state hatch a plan in Missouri. So we have, I think we're ready to scoop and score, as they say. But I think Missouri's definitely, the state of Missouri is going to come up with an alternative plan for both of them.
Okay, well, that also leads me to my next question. So if the Chiefs do decide to cross over, how much of an impact could that have on Kansas? And then also, should lawmakers go the extra mile to be competitive in this and make sure that they do come over to the Kansas side of the state line? Michael?
So economists and public policy scholars who study this for years, there's very little economic benefit from local sports teams. The World Cup is a completely different matter because people are literally coming from all over the world. What you do is you substitute one form of entertainment for another, or substitute where you go out for dinner after the game, one location for another. The reason to build a local sports venue is to build a local sports venue. And that's another thing that was remarkable about this Jackson County vote, is that it aligns with most of the academic research I've read over the years, that voters aren't buying this idea that spending money on local sports teams is economic development. You spend money on local sports teams to spend money on local sports teams, period. And whichever state ends up getting it, they're going to have to repackage in that fashion, because voters have become a lot more skeptical these days.
All right, Bill, what's your take? How much should Kansas lawmakers invest to get the Chiefs over here?
I wouldn't disagree with Michael. I think you've seen a different model now where it's just not the sports team. It is the ancillary development that goes around it, entertainment districts, shopping, restaurants, even housing. And so they can't really do that at Arrowhead. They don't have the room to do that. And so I think, and remember, Kansas, this is new money to Kansas. This is no different, and I'll disagree on this. This is no different than bringing a company, Panasonic or a car manufacturer, into your state. You are getting outside dollars that were not there previously, because so much of this is going to come from the surrounding KC Metro and Iowa, Nebraska, all those people that will be flowing into our state that weren't there to begin with. So it's more than the sports team. I would agree. If it's just building a sports complex, correct. And voters are savvy. They know that. So they want to see something more. They want to get a public amenity that they can use, or that that they can frequent more than just 8, 9, 10 times a year.
And there's also something called a community benefits agreement, which was insufficient in Jackson County. If you're going to reinvest, you have to get the teams to commit. How much are they paying the workers at the stadium? How much are they reinvesting in the community around the stadium? What kind of a commitment are they making? And that kept changing right up, even after early voting had started, which is another reason it failed in Jackson County. Research in Milwaukee, for example, has shown you need a really tough community benefits agreement before you're really going to see any kind of local benefit other than the sports team itself.
All right, thank you both. New bills are becoming law after a successful override at the State House. We'll be right back. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
Normal. We're all trying to get back to it together. But what if there were a new normal? One where everyone recognized how much we need everyone else and how much we need everyone to be healthy. At Grace Med, that's our hope. That's why we provide a medical home in 16 locations with a wide range of healthcare services for everyone, regardless of their ability to pay. It's also why we deliver care when and where it's needed most. Because we're Grace Med, the home of hope care for everyone.
Some mobile companies make it hard to get a good deal. But at Cox Mobile, we know there's a better way to save. A smarter way. That's why we run on the network with unbeatable 5G reliability without breaking the bank. You'll pay as low as $30 per line. It's a win-win. Cox Mobile, the smart way to mobile.
Whether it's a trip to the local lake or a dip in the neighbor's pool, follow these tips to keep your summer safe. Always supervise kids in and around water by designating an adult to watch young swimmers. Put away distractions. Drowning is often silent and can occur in as little as 30 seconds. Never swim alone. Even more experienced swimmers should swim with a partner every time. Remember these tips and enjoy a cool and safe summer in the water. This message is sponsored by these fine sponsors: Swims and Sweeps, Flying Fish, Swim and Scuba, Lakeside Marine.
The Storm Track WeatherCam Network on 27 News. More cameras covering your community, giving you a live, exclusive look at weather as it rolls across northeast Kansas.
That is a view in Holton as that storm is starting to clear out.
Working for you to provide advance warning of changing conditions. The Storm Track WeatherCam Network, available live to you anytime, online, and on the 27 News mobile app. Sponsored by Prairie Bend Casino and Resort.
Welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. I'm Rebecca Chung. We're taking a look at some of the new laws going into effect after lawmakers overrode the governor's veto of several bills. And that includes a couple of abortion bills. So one would create the crime of coercion. So people who try to force someone into getting an abortion, despite that person expressing desire to give birth, could face jail time and thousands of dollars in fines. Then another bill would change the reporting requirements to collect information on why people decide to get an abortion. So Michael, let's get your take on the abortion coercion bill. What impact could this have?
That's an excellent question, and it's really going to come down to the discretion of prosecutors. We may see a gap in urban and rural areas, red and blue areas. How do you prove that someone coerced someone into having an abortion? I would think that prosecutions would be relatively rare. There could be a chilling effect. And of course, one of the issues that pro-choice legislators pointed out is that they didn't make it a crime to coerce someone into getting pregnant. I know Representative Clayton was particularly outspoken about that. They tried to get an amendment on that would also make it a crime to coerce someone into getting pregnant, but they were not successful with that.
All right, and Bill, what do you think about the abortion reporting changes that we could see coming up?
You got two sides on this as well, but it was, overridden. So one side, the pro-life would be, this is to serve vulnerable women. The pro-abortion side would be, this is stigmatizing, traumatizing, an invasion of privacy in the abortion room and doctor's office. I doubt that anybody that wrote this has been in that office like the women are and would have any idea what this would do to them. So it's surprising it did get overridden. Everyone's getting behind data collection. We're going to collect data to do something. It's certainly not coming from the doctor or the medical profession that this is going to help the care of the women. So it's peculiar to me. I guess enough legislators think, given the overriding feel about abortion and our vote a couple years ago, that they're willing to take that risk with their constituents, or it just won't be that noticed amongst them. So I guess we'll see in the fall if there'll be any blowback.
Another bill that we've been tracking would increase penalties for killing police animals. Now, this is called Bain's Law. It increases the fines and prison time for people convicted. And this bill was backed by a Sedgwick County Sheriff's deputy whose canine, Bain, was killed in the line of duty. So the governor vetoed the bill, however, but a successful override when lawmakers returned. So, Michael, Bill, what impact could this bill have? Also, strong support to override the governor's veto on this bill from lawmakers, at least in the House. Then in the Senate, it was about 29-10 was the vote. So, Michael, let's start with you.
I don't think anybody except a sociopath would want to see these service animals killed. It's heartbreaking, and I know, we heard so much about how war veterans bond with their service animals, that even if the animals die of natural causes, they grieve. They just absolutely grieve and can even fall into depression. I'm sure it's the same for police officers. This bond is real. But there's also another issue, and that is mandatory sentencing guidelines, which have been the fad since the 1990s. This presumption that judges and juries don't know what they're doing. So the legislature needs to dictate to them that they have to use a table to hand down sentences. And it's been really problematic. It's resulted in some egregious over and under sentencing. I don't think the governor or some senators are taking a stand in favor of harming service animals. I think that we really need to have a conversation about these sentencing guidelines and tables. And why don't we trust our judges and juries to do their job, that they need to be micromanaged by the state legislature?
All right, thank you both. We're continuing our talk after the break. We'll be right back. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
Hi, Grandma. I'm in trouble and I really need some money.
Tommy, is that you? Of course I'll help. But first, what's the family code word?
Code word?
In 2023, Americans lost $9 billion to fraud, and phone scams like these are steadily increasing. Safeguard your family by establishing a family code word only known to family members, and verify that code word with the caller before taking any action.
It's more than a move. It's a new job for her, a new baseball team for him. And for Badger, it's a new yard with more room to roam. It's more than a move, and we're more than a truck.
From clearing land to building sheds or retaining walls to digging ponds, All Seasons Excavating and Landscape is here to turn your vision into reality. Our experienced equipment operators can create landscapes that increase your property's value. Call All Seasons Excavating and Landscape today.
Would you rather hear about sports from people who like to talk sports or hear from the people who actually play and coach sports?
The best predictor of future success is past success.
K-Nation has the interviews and coverage you want for all things KU and K-State.
When you do the small things correctly, big things will happen.
Join us every Sunday night after 27 News at 10 for another exciting week of K-Nation. Sponsored by 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
Y'all hear us blow out the subwoofer?
It's TV's biggest morning party, live with Kelly and Mark.
Boom, boom.
Big stars and big surprises. Plus,
are you rooting for me or against me?
Don't miss the fun on the #1 entertainment talk show.
You think the other talk shows complain about us? They're like, it's too loud over there.
Weekdays at 11 on 27 KSNT.
Welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. I'm Rebecca Chung. Well, we're wrapping up our talk on veto session now. And before we go, Michael, Bill, what are some of the key takeaways from this veto session? And also, what could we see come up in terms of other items coming up outside of tax when lawmakers return, or if they return? So, Bill, let's start with you.
I'm going to go a little, we'll go quickly here. The approval ratings for Governor Kelly came out. In the low 60s, second highest Democrat in the nation, 8th highest in terms of governor's approvals, 8th highest in the nation. Her line has been drawn, and her approval is very high. I think this is going to be very telling how much they want to go against her.
Okay, possibly some clashing between Democrats, Republicans. Okay, Michael, what do you think?
I've got my eye on the election bill. This election bill was quite a piece of work. It would ban municipalities from taking federal funding for upgrading their election equipment without the state legislature's explicit permission, which could prevent them from upgrading, for example, to machines that leave a paper trail. But it also would greatly narrow the scope of an awful piece of legislation they passed a few years ago that made it a crime to impersonate an election official, but was written so vaguely they could end up prosecuting the League of Women Voters for doing voter registration drives. This would greatly narrow that to acting with the intent of deceiving someone. And so there's good and bad mixed together. The governor thought the bad outweighed the good, and she vetoed it. Will they take another bite at the apple?
All right. The Republican leader saying anything's on the table with the special session. All right, thank you both. And that was your look inside Kansas politics. If you want to keep up to date on all things Kansas politics, then follow us on social media. Follow us on X at InKSPolitics and on Facebook. Just search Inside Kansas Politics. We'll also post the full video on YouTube. Just search KSNT News. And check ksnt.com/inside-kansas-politics for past episodes. If you have a story you want Kansas state legislators to hear or topics you think we should cover, let us know. You can email us at ikp@ksnt.com. We'll see you right here, same time, same place. Have a good day.